Suzy Wrong, Joy Drive's film, TV and theatre reviewer.
Suzy Wrong, how you going?
I'm good. Do you think that sabotaging a relationship means to add a big change to it, like getting married or getting children?
I
don't know. That's a very good question.
We'll ask.
Yeah, we'll add that question for you, Suzy.
See, I feel like people make these big changes when things are going really well, and I feel like if things are going really well, it scares me when they make such a huge change to it.
Yeah, we'll put that to the expert when we talk to them a bit later. Do you have a habit of sabotaging your relationships? I know it's a personal question. You don't have to answer it.
I feel like the times when I did get into serious relationships, I thought I was pretty good at it. I always thought that it was the other person that effed up, but that's me.
But in hindsight...
The truth is I only had really serious relationships when I was very young. Well, when I say very young, I was in my I was from 19 to about early 30s. So I felt I associate being in serious relationships with sort of the younger days of my life when I guess there was a lot of immaturity involved. And for me, maturity almost means you don't do relationships. I mean, just from knowing myself better, I know that I'm not a relationships person.
Now, Suzy, whilst we're on relationships, we watched Nuclear Family this week, which is currently streaming on Binge. Do you want to give us a bit of an overview of what it's about and what you think of it?
It was 1981 when Robin and Russo decided to start a family. It had made news at the time because Robin and Russo are a lesbian couple, and the audacious idea of gay people daring to create their own family units was simply unimaginable. Flashing forward 40 years later, the documentary series Nuclear Family, now streaming on Binge, reveals the true story behind one of the first known American gay families. Robin and Russo had 2 children in quick succession, and one of them, Rye, is now a filmmaker. In Nuclear Family, Rye talks of her experience growing up in a loving but tumultuous environment. It is a slight spoiler to reveal the source of that tumult, but we can't really discuss the film without saying that it is Rye's sperm donor and his intentions to insert himself into these women's lives that caused a lot of the trouble. Like most upper middle class families of the time, home video cameras were pointed frequently at the kids, and that footage, along with more formalized interviews obtained subsequently, the 3-part series helps us formulate narratives to find ways to understand the problems that had arisen through Rye's childhood. The documentary offers satisfying answers to questions many of us would have had 30, 40 years ago, all those doubts that had come across our minds when it was apparent that non-traditional families were going to become commonplace. Most of us would have believed that, of course, gay people could be parents just like the straights, but we also knew that at the back of our minds that kids of lesbians and gays would not be exempt from all the usual heartache that other kids are bound to experience. Nuclear Family is cleverly structured and deliciously dramatic. It is ultimately a small story, but I found it very involving. Your thoughts, Em and Warren?
Deliciously dramatic is such a good way to put
word.
it. I also really rode the wave of the story arc, sort of. I really found myself kind of going backwards and forwards on where I sat on the whole thing, I was in moments I was 100% with her mums, and I was like, yes, of course. And then there were moments where I really felt for the sperm donor as well, and I really think that they did do such a great job of kind of writing that story and giving us a little bit of both sides, if that makes sense. Because I still actually right now don't even know exactly how I feel, which is such a wild thing for a docuseries to make you feel.
Yeah, I had the same feeling, Em, and I don't know if you did, Suzy, as well. I thought Rye, who's the kid, of course, brings a real vulnerability to her storytelling, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful. The whole documentary, it doesn't focus on sort of, they talk about the legal case, but it doesn't talk about the politics and the legality so much. It's more about the personal impact of the tug of war going on between the two different parties. And initially, I was like you, Em, I was kind of feeling for the parents, and I thought, wow, this guy is coming in and trying to insert himself into the life. And then I was like, well, actually, he was already involved and was a friend anyway, so it's not like it was just an anonymous donor of any sort. And I think it leads you to start questioning, why does the child feel so threatened by someone that she loved playing with? And when I started getting that questioning in my mind, I started to question, okay, who is right here and who is wrong? And I think that's where the conflict started. Did you get the same thing, Em and Suzy?
I love that she kept the complexity of all those relationships. I love that she made us see how there were all grey lines everywhere, and you would never know for sure. You would never be able to come to a conclusion that one side was right and one side was wrong. And I think that's why documentaries are great. I think the more that you can get to the truth, the more complex everything is, and then you get a sense of what it must have felt like for them in the middle. And I think a lot of children who have had those experiences, in a more simple way, I guess, children from divorced families, you want to think that there's one side that's good, one side that's bad, and that makes the story simple. But really, it's good people and bad people all simultaneously at the same time everywhere.
Did you like how she used the filming in the documentary? So I believe Rye started using cameras and things at the age of 8 to 13, and that's given us, I guess, that retrospective look, hasn't it? And it's probably given her a bit of perspective on what happened as well.
Yeah, she recorded herself when she was 19, which is very different from now when she's 40. So there are those perspectives, and we see how it evolves, and how there were sort of bits where she was gaslit a lot, and then you kind of see how she comes to the realization that what she had thought was true at a certain time, she's able to have the benefit of looking back and thinking, oh, I actually had misunderstood a lot of things, and I was taught to misread a lot of things. I thought that was really interesting. And that's really reflective of, I guess, all our lives, how we sometimes interpret things or hold on to some things as though they are true, and then, maybe one day, 10, 20 years later, we look back and we think, oh, maybe that wasn't what really happened.
Absolutely. I think hindsight, right? That's the whole thing. Hindsight is something that you can only have in hindsight. So it's one of those things. But I did definitely think that her kind of discovery of potentially the fact that her parents had almost instilled a fear was such an interesting discovery, and to watch her as a person make that discovery, because I think pretty much all of us have moments like that, maybe not to the same extent, but where you think one thing and then you realize as an adult, oh, maybe that was because my mom or my dad or whoever was, an adult figure at the time was saying, oh, this is the right thing to do, or this is the wrong thing, I don't know. It was such an interesting thing to watch.
It's so hard to come to terms with it, because she knows that she had been led down the wrong path in some ways, but also she knew it was too for her protection, and she knew that it came out of love, right? She had no question. She wasn't questioning the love, but she knew that because they loved her, they had to do these things, and they had to sort of make her believe in all these false things for a long time. So she's at a place now, at about 39, 40 years old, trying very hard to come to terms with it, and you wonder if you can. It's just these contradictions in life that makes you, that I guess the more mature you are, the more you have to sit with contradictions. We're talking to Suzy Rong about Nuclear Family, which is currently screening on Binge. It's a 3-part documentary. Em and Suzy, can we just go to episode 3? Because did you notice Sandy's reaction to being challenged? I thought that was quite a defensive reaction, and I think it almost, I interpreted it almost like she knew that they were, reconfiguring the truth. And it got me wondering, that defend at all costs strategy by the mums may have transferred something onto the kid, which is what we've been talking about, that perhaps should not have been, and that was that gaslighting. And I thought that wasn't fair, and it kind of left me wondering afterwards, was the struggle really over the kid, or was there something else underlying it?
I think there definitely was something else underlying it. It was to make sure that people knew and the world knew that their relationship and their family was valid. And I think I just got goosebumps, because I think that's such they really needed to fight to ensure that people took their family seriously. And whether or not that was in the best interests of their children, I think that they definitely had another motive, which was that validity of their family.
Absolutely.
Also, being embroiled in in all these legal cases, it is so incredibly binary. You are either going to
Yeah.
win or you're going to lose. You sort of have no room to sort of let the shades of truth come true. And I think what it meant was that when you are in a situation like this, you just gotta fight with all guns blazing, and that involves, all kinds of casualties.
But do you think it's fair, though? Let's add the man dying of HIV. Now, that's left Rye with perhaps a hint of anger or even maybe, disgust at the way she treated Tom before he died. Do you think it's fair that she gets left with that?
I think her mothers weren't given the option. Like I said, it's very binary. I think that the mothers were sort of, you either lose your entire family the way that you had planned for it to be, or you stick to your guns and come at it with your worst, and that's what they did. But obviously, the aftermath is that the kids have to pay the price now.
Yeah, absolutely. Suzy, I really enjoyed watching Nuclear Family.
Yeah,
I
me
thought
too.
that it was really beautifully created, and it definitely left me with more questions than answers. And I kind of love that. I kind of love
Yeah.
a show or some piece of, film or whatever that does that. What's our homework for next week, Suzy?
Next week, we are looking at Rurangi, which can be found at SBS On Demand. It is a New Zealand film about a trans man coming out to his Maori family and community.
What's it called again?
Rurangi, Rurangi. That's on
Rurangi
SBS On
on
Demand.
SBS On Demand. When will we catch you next, Suzy?
I'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Suzy.
Thanks, Suzy.